Imagine starting at Maccas and managing to get yourself into a multi-million dollar property portfolio. This is a huge session. So I was surprised at how many properties, I didn't actually know how many properties Jarrod had acquired. And he was able to buy 7 properties in 18 months. Through creative and actually unpacking once he realized the key and secret ingredient to the property investing space, which is it is finance. So we unpack what the finance level up and unpack the golden nugget he was able to uncover there. We spoke about property versus shares. He has a unique take on this, which I think was super interesting. We spoke about the unlimited borrowing capacity. We spoke about lending hacks. There's so many topics that we unpacks how he was able to, so he thinks about the numbers in a very unique manner and about how to build his portfolio. So going from, I suppose, a lower salary to then building it up and taking the time to sacrifice and build out that portfolio to get him to where he wants to go. It was an epic session. We were lucky enough to have the hostess, the guest co-hostess with the mostess, Steve Polizzi for Polizzi Property along. And this was an epic session to jump on in. Hey everybody, I'm Jeff Miles, and together with Joe Tucker, we've created Australia's largest property investment Facebook community with now over 85,000 property investors, and each week we get to interview the top property investment experts in their field. And together this week, we have a mortgage broker, property investor, along for the ride, Jarrod Mackenzie from Investify, along with special guest co-host Steve Polizzi. Let's jump in. And we are live on Oz Property Investors. We bring the big names and we have the big fun. And we've been so much banter before the show. It has been so much fun. We're going to talk about Jarrod's journey from Maccas. So we didn't bring some chips, but we've got some Maccas to multi-million dollar property portfolio. We brought Steve along for the ride. He's in a new place. This is all exciting. And we're going to talk about unlimited borrowing capacity at some stage as well. So stay tuned for that. Jarrod said he's got a controversial take, and I'm excited to hear about that because I love a bit of controversy. Jarrod, how you going?
Going great. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, that's exciting, isn't it? It's good on you for joining in. There was a special event for you yesterday. I'll let you share that news with us. But Steve, how you going?
I'm good, man. I'm looking forward to this. I know Jarrod quite well from we've been working together for quite some time. So I'm interested to see us unpack this portfolio. And it's genuinely like a very, very impressive portfolio for where he's come from and what he's kind of developed. Whereas, you see the media stories about McDonald's worker now has 50 properties. No, they've run a buyer's agency or a business or something that's done really, really well. He's actually generally built it himself.
Nice. There you go, Steve. I like that I go with this whole unlimited, and you're just you're killing the hype a little bit. So a little bit of polarity between Steve and myself, which is good. So it's going to be a big throw your comments and questions because Jarrod is only
moving away. Is that the wife?
Yeah, the wife's just
Hi, wife. Hello.
So Jarrod, you're in your late 20s, early 30s. I think have you hit 30 yet?
I'm at 31 now. I'm getting old now, but but most of this portfolio was done up to 30s, and then it's gotten a little bit interesting after that. But yeah, it's a long overnight success that took about 11 years, I think.
Oh, geez. He's very, very modest. He's ruining. I think that's one of the secrets that a lot of people don't talk about. It's yes, I built an 18 property portfolio. I'm not saying yours is 18. Maybe it's bigger. Maybe it's smaller. Who knows? Size doesn't matter. It's how you use it. But no, there's that time which compounds and all that sort of stuff. So before we get into it, I'm just going to put this disclaimer out there. This information is general nature, not taking into account your personal needs or objectives. Go and speak to your brokers, financial planners, buyer's agents, or maybe not buyer's agents, but love buyer's agents. But yeah, they can't give shouldn't be giving financial advice on that. But all those professionals there, and now we've covered it off. So Jarrod, the person you are in front of us now, because I love introducing people. You are the mortgage broking, or you are a mortgage broking partner, Investify, and you've got your multi-million dollar property portfolio. You're a retail manager at Maccas for 5 years. The thing that we may not know about you is that you were also the accounting bookkeeper at a childcare center for 5 years. So you really know your numbers. That's where your passion, so you can talk numbers, but I think that'll come through in the conversation. And the thing I love about you, in your free time, you indulge your passion for the outdoors. So, but also camping and dirt biking. passions for indulging. Like I don't think
Yeah.
of indulging as camping and biking, sort of mountain biking, but good on you, dirt biking. But yeah, that's not something I've heard people indulging in. But good on you for sharing that information on your site. So, Steve, you know Jarrod a little bit better than me. So start us off with the first question. What do you reckon?
I think firstly we've got to point out that he's in the Philippines and he got married very, very recently.
Yeah,
But I didn't want to point this out for those people who know Jarrod because, you know, they could, anyway.
All the people that didn't know, you weren't invited, you're not special enough. Sorry.
Yeah, I did get permission to come on. So that's one day after I got married, but it was a sort of a bit of a follow-up wedding. So we got married in Australia, but obviously we wanted to have the big, my wife's from the Philippines. So we wanted to have the big traditional wedding, which she definitely wanted. So we got that big bucket list item, I guess, ticked off yesterday. So definitely a little bit different to the Australian wedding. A lot more events, photos, probably just 2 weddings in one almost, I reckon.
Not allowed to ask it, but which one was funner?
Actually, it was really good because the event coordinator held back a lot of information that we're going to do. So all my friends and all my family got dragged into doing things that if you gave them pre-warning, I don't think they would have done.
Wouldn't have.
You know what I mean? So you sort of make a lot of good memories from it, I reckon. That will,
wow.
Yeah.
So you've just given the right answer there. Well done. Yeah, it's the one that over. Yeah,
it was a bit of a politician answer, anyway.
Yeah.
All good. So that's a good way to segue into, well, how did the property investing bug, how did it bite you? Did you flipping burgers at Maccas at 14, 15 and said, you know what, enough of this. I'm gonna get out of Maccas. My way of getting out is through property. Or did it come to one day, or is it a bit deeper story?
Going back, I've always been a big worker. My dad's always tinkering and that, so I probably took after him and following, doing things, not always being active in that sense. However, really, I was actually more into the shares when I was in high school, playing the share market game, all those sort of things. I used to really be big in that. And so got into uni and didn't even know what I wanted to do really, sort of thing. So I was doing a bit of uni and not just working full-time at Maccas, and thought, well, if I'm working there, you may as well be on, the management track and getting an extra 50 cents an hour or whatever you get by being the higher level. So really I was just putting money away, buying shares, and my dad was just, the traditional Aussie in your ear, you need to get your first property as soon as you can. And eventually we were like, okay, well, let's buy one in our backyard. So living in Western Sydney, we just started looking at properties on the weekend. And to be honest, I probably just FOMO'd in at that time. It was like back in 2014, like late 2014. So that was when I think Sydney, I probably not good on timelines before what all the marks like, but from that point, I remember it being super hot. Like Sydney,
it was. I got my first one in 2012, and I remember the year following that, it was just nuts. Like it shut up.
I remember like going to, and it's probably like this in some markets now. Like you'd turn up and then you'd get a text message, me your highest offer, sort of thing, and it was sold that day. So I did a little bit of a FOMO and just bought a house that I could, an old 3-bed, 5-row home in Western Sydney in Blacktown Council area.
Literally same location, same style of property for me.
Yeah. So I just bought, and then I moved into it. And got
the first homeowners grant. Wink, wink.
Yeah. I don't think the grant was around back then. So I don't think.
No, I think by that stage, 2014, they sort of cut it off. Interestingly, chatting to somebody today, they're looking now at $1 million plus property in Layla Park. And I'm sure you got, I think, Steve, that was just around the corner from your place. But,
I saw, was it a 1.61 in Mount Druitt the other week popped up as well?
Yeah, I saw that.
Was it Shelby sold one for 1.9 or something stupid?
Subdivision, though. Subdivision.
Yeah.
That's not a true.
Still a lot of money.
I wouldn't be even like the bad parts of Mount Druitt, almost getting there to $1 million sort of thing. So it's definitely a different market. But yeah, back then I think it was about 485 I bought in like, it was Rudy Hill that I bought in. So yeah, and basically that's actually what triggered me to get into researching. So after I bought the property, that's when I went down the rabbit hole of watching podcasts and all that. But really I was just working away, paying the mortgage, getting the terms with this, massive debt back then. And basically worked for Maccas, decided uni wasn't going to be for me. And then
what were you doing at uni, Jarrod?
I got in and did engineering at UNSW, and I did like the first semester where you do the introductory subjects and stuff, and I hated the math. I'd get there and fall asleep. I just couldn't. It just was not for me.
You're not a broker now dealing with numbers all day, every day.
No.
Yeah. I think it's a little bit more drier when you get into the more abstract ideas of it.
Yeah. We've got a very similar story, but like engineering, for those who don't know, the first year is probably the hardest. They make you do basically like, I don't know what it's called now, 4-unit mathematics.
Yeah, it's like 4-unit. Man.
I remember I was very, very lucky I did 4-unit mathematics at high school, because I got to that and I was like, okay, I got 60, 70% of this. And my mates that did like 2-unit and 3-unit were just like, what is this nonsense? Like, what's imaginary numbers? What's this? And that's the highest dropout rate, is in the first year from engineering, because they do that and they go, this.
That was my exact. I didn't even do 3-unit, and I went into it, and I should have done like a bridging course or something to bring myself up to speed. So it was So, but I was like, okay, well, I pivoted into, I got a basic job in bookkeeping at the time, and then over the next that was 2 years after I bought my property. I got into that, and I got that up till 2020, and I basically grew up into becoming an accounts manager for like a multi-childcare center operator. So when I got there, they had like 1 or 2 centers, and when I left, they had like 6 or 7 operating, and then they had like a pipeline of developing like heaps more. So
remind me later on to come back to this when we get to the commercial chat about like what your thoughts are about buying childcare centers, and with your very specialized skill set of finance, done the bookkeeping for them, like, is there an opportunity there? But we'll get to that one.
That's an interesting one. I actually probably have something else on that, so we'll come back to that. But yeah, so I did that, and I really liked it actually. I'm probably good at numbers, just not the 4-unit stuff. So yeah, it was really good. I grew up in that. They let me grow a lot because I grew with the business, which is, great. You might hit a ceiling a lot easier if you went into a big corporate, I find, or, whereas if you're growing with business, you got more options. So, and so I still hadn't even bought a property. So we're like 6 years later, I hadn't bought a second property. I've just been putting money away.
You just waited that sort of, how did you go with, like, you were listening to educating yourself, what were some of the podcasts?
I was listening, but there was no penny drops yet on the finance point of view. Like I hadn't realized, like probably at that time, I didn't even understand LMI and stuff like that. Yeah, I had, and I was paying P&I, paying down the loan, but I was putting all my money into shares, to be honest. So I was pretty aggressive with, picking stocks.
How did you go? Because we often have people watch, like particularly Gurav. He loves a bit of a share or an ETF, Gurav. It was supposed, but how did you go with your shares? Were you like picking particular stocks, or were you?
Yeah, it was pretty much just stocks. I wasn't into the ETFs or stuff, and I guess that's where I sort of like being in the accounting. I was just like reading balance sheets and learning shares. Like it was probably pretty newbie stuff, like looking back. But I think everybody goes through that journey of like you learn things in a particular order. So it's very common that I think people go down the same logic, and you go to the penny stocks first or something, and then you realize that's not a good idea because they halve in value, So you slowly get a better understanding of what you're actually investing in.
And what's your opinion? Because it's a little bit of a spicy take, like shares versus property. Is there, like, how do you feel about shares these days? So do you think they're still...
I think it's all about the leverage. Shares are better, I think, from a pure growth point of view. If you had $1 million and that's all you could get, and you're going to invest, you probably get more out of shares. Is probably the realistic truth of it. However, you get leverage and all that by going into property. So, which when you put that into the equation, property will blow shares out of the water.
Yeah. People, I do love when we sort of make that sort of thing, because then people say you can leverage in shares. I'm like, well, yeah, you can a little bit, of course.
All that. Also, the cost of the money is a very big part of that, because you might be able to get it at 8 or 9% in shares, but you can get it at 5% or whatever in property. So.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there we go.
Yeah.
I'll steer away from it, Steve. Dangerous territory, because somebody will get an email about it soon. It'll be me. But what are some of the ideas? So what took you? And I know Steve probably wanted to ask this as well, but I'm the kid in the candy store that gets asked this question now. What was what changed your mind in 2020 to then get more into? Was it becoming the broker that changed your mind, or what was the thing?
To be honest, it was. So one of the buyer's agents that I'd probably been listening to for 5 years, through that time, and I was starting to learn and all that. There would be periods on and off where you do more or less and you learn more. But basically, they put a post out and said, "Hey, we're looking for a junior broker." And I was getting a little bit shafted at my old job, getting a bit bored of that, and so I was like, "Okay, let's give it a crack." And I turned up there, and dealing with those guys, and Z, who was the head broker there, and still around these days, he basically opened my mind up to basically how finance works, the secret sauce sort of thing. And that's what I said to him when I wanted to know the secret sauce of how this works. And seeing other people go and buy multiple properties was sort of like a penny drop, like, oh, I've got a property, I have equity, I can pull that equity out, I can go buy more properties. Yeah. So it was sort of a realization that, what you can do.
Did you learn more from the brokers there or the clients there that were having the big portfolios, or was it a bit of both? Are you kind of seeing like, wow, this person's got 10 properties, how do they get it? Or was it the brokers kind of crafting you of like, this is how you get to 10 properties that was more valuable?
Yeah, it's probably first the crafting of it was the realization, but then obviously seeing how, like, there's two parts of it. Like, there's how you craft the finance, but there's also the buying aspect. Because like, if you could have the best finance strategy in the world and then you go buy a dud, it's kind of useless. Like, you can't execute on the rest of the strategy to extrapolate that into a portfolio. So it's a bit of a chicken and the egg. You kind of need both to do it, and then sort of seeing how easy it was to, in the right markets and all that, to actually execute on that.
So I think. I was going to say, like, especially even back that, like, maybe a few months, it was like 2017, there wasn't any information out there. Like, I had to go to like mentors like the Nathan Birches being like, what do I do? And they're like, well, we buy the property below market value, then you do a renovation, make it worth a bit more, then you go back to the bank, which is like Westpac at the time. You're not even talking to a broker, and you go pull out the equity and you go again. And that was pretty much the extent of my knowledge of how finance works. No idea about structures and all that. That was it. And for someone who had like, I think 5 or 6 properties at the time, like, probably should have known more, but there was nothing out there.
Yeah. And in saying that, like, during that break that I didn't do anything, I did actually try. Like, I actually went to Birch's map session and then I went to some other people, and I actually got the feedback that I couldn't do anything. So that's why I was just like, we'll focus 100% on shares sort of thing. But then when I actually got to a proper broker, I was like, oh, okay, you can do heaps of things.
Yeah. Can I just sort of say,
going to that job too?
And I reckon that you're probably one of these people as well, Jarrod. If you're going to, anybody out there in the audience watching or watching a replay, if you're going to a broker or whoever professional it is, and they're saying that you can't do it, that's fine. They're saying you can't do it, but the next question is, well, what do I need to do to get myself in the position to be able to do it? Because it's how do I do it? And if that person still can't tell you the answer, I think you need to then delve a bit deeper, because if you're not doing that, and Steve, I think you probably learned this as well. Like, yes, you've done 2,000 plus deals now, but I reckon there was a stage though, Steve, you seem quite determined, Steve. Did you, when somebody told you no, did you just then go to somebody else that was able to get you into the position, Steve, or how did you go about it?
I'm actually very, very lucky and kind of fluked it that I started investing in an era where servicing wasn't really an issue. Like, if the equity was there, you could get the finance and go again. I think if I didn't have that, I probably would have had to be like, I don't know, would have cracked it or stopped a little bit. But like you said, I'm a bit determined. So I think I probably just would have kept pestering people. But you said the perfect thing. If your broker can't tell you what's stopping you buying the next one, if there's generally equity there, like you've got the capital somewhere there, and they're not telling you what's stopping you, then probably time for a new broker. Because like, what are they actually giving you?
Yeah, they should be able to give you a game plan of, hey, if you go do X, Y, Z, and be able to articulate it as well. Why is that the case? Because sometimes there's an element of I can get you the loan, it's just at what cost? like what costs,
Yeah.
sort of thing. Like what are
Interest
we,
rate or LPR, yeah.
yeah, like what's, or do you have a massive deposit, or like this, yeah. So yeah.
Tell us more about, so you started working as in the broking space. What was then the next, how long did it take you? Was it like the next month you said, okay, crap, I've just not wasted, but I've sat on my thumbs for 5 years. Did you then say, crap, okay, now's the time to make hay while the sun shines. I've discovered the secret sauce and went and bought 8 properties
It was probably actually 9 to 12 months. So first was just like getting good at my job again, exciting new job, getting good, showing that I could get runs on the board, that sort of stuff. Because I took a step down in salary quite a lot to get into the job, because it was just pure base, and then you go and perform to get extra sort of thing. So there was a bit of a learning curve in that, and I had to get my stuff in order so that I could actually go and do the cash out and then go buy all the properties. So about a year later, I had got into a position that I went back, pulled out that equity, and I had a decent sized war chest, and I actually sold all my shares at the same time.
Well, that's a big move.
Yeah, so I took all my shares, all that, got the cash out, and then I went out and I bought, essentially, I think it was 3 properties in the next like 12 months in that period. So, and it was pretty much, I went like after the cash out, I was capped out at Main Street. Like I was already capped out, so I had to go to non-bank lenders, and I bought with the team that we bought a duplex up in Caboolture up in Queensland, and then we bought a little house in Logan 2 months later, and then another 2 months later we bought a property over in WA. So this was all in 21 in Forestville.
Forestville, mate. Oh man, that was that was 2021 in Forestville.
They're all crackers. Even
like every single one of them.
Logan one's a house has gone from 300 grand to 650, 700 easily.
Yeah. Well, I think they're in like 750, 800s now, just in a house. So
I've still got one in Eagleby.
Yeah, and I was a little bit pickier back then. I think I really scrutinized the buyer's agents. I'm probably a little bit lax now in that sense. But I remember saying, I want cash flow, I want upside, I want added value. So I wanted everything. So they got me a duplex. And that's one of my favorite properties, like duplex. It was like cash flow positive day one sort of thing. You can't buy something like that today, just by the way. It was just, so we bought that. And then the Logan property had granny flat potential. And then the Forestville property had subdivision potential.
With residential, like not done it with commercial, because that's, I think, a different answer. What's the main key thing as a broker you see people's strategy change? Because obviously, like back then, I was similar to you. Jeff's probably the same, of like, let's get neutral to cash flow positive properties. What are you seeing now? Obviously, that's harder, if not impossible, in good areas. What's the general strategy you see with people doing? Is it just a capital growth play, and then they use that to get into another asset like a commercial or development or granny flat strategy?
I think it's definitely like, it's got to be capital growth first, but in the parameters of your cash flow. So there's no point in buying in point piper if you can't afford point pipe. It's pointless. It might be a great buy, but it's pointless. So it's scaling down to what you do. But also, I think there's a bit of a, like, I leave it to the buyers or like the experts to do it. But I think there's also a sweet spot, like going too high in the price point to chase capital growth. You give up way too much on cash flow that you really need to question if that growth is going to be enough to outweigh that cash flow loss. So I think it comes down to your individual tolerance for the cash flow, but it's about building up that equity, because you can't get into commercial realistically unless you're a high flyer income wise. So you're going to have to start off in commercial, or you need a massive deposit base, and that's got to come from somewhere. So really,
how do you feel about that, Steve? Do you feel, are you sort of in greens, or do you think there's a bit of?
I am, and I've worked with Jarrod, which we'll probably get to as well. But that's the negative commercial. Like on paper, it's 3 times the cash flow and the exact same capital growth. Like for like, it kills residential. Same as how shares kill property. but you don't get the leverage. Commercials in between that gap. You don't get as much leverage as residential, and you don't like more than shares. So it's just getting that balance right.
Yeah. Going back to, we just glossed over you bought 3 properties in 12 months. So what was
Yeah.
for somebody looking to go on a similar sort of run? Yes, there's a step up in income that you sorted that out, but yes, you were probably, I reckon those properties were all around the 300 to 400 ish mark. Which it's harder to buy those assets. But what are the sort of steps that people that are looking to go on that sort of run, or what things did you get lined up before you went on bought those properties?
When I bought those 3 properties, I actually hadn't had that step up in income yet. So it was actually more just about utilizing generous lenders and going down the spectrum of those lenders.
Was a lot of that the Blacktown equity that you were just kind of
so
leveraging with your shares?
Yeah, it was probably like half. It was probably equity and shares. So I think it might have been like 150 and 150 combined, and then spread out across 3 properties. But in really, if I had have known what I known, these purchases would have happened probably over a longer period, but sooner, more front-ended before. Sort of thing. But where the higher income came into place was probably after those were done. So I'd stretched myself with the non-bank lenders, paid a little bit of a premium to do so. But then as the income came back, well, as soon as your income gets enough, you could move them away from the non-bank lenders and repeat the process. So I think later that year, I had gotten enough traction in my new job and starting to get better and better. And so I had enough income to restructure what I'd just done and pull out another war chest for the next round of buying.
Yeah.
Is that generally still the strategy nowadays, is when you use the second, third tier lenders when you need to, once you've got enough equity, you refinance that go, and then just keep doing that yo-yo shift?
It's pretty much, that is pretty much the nut and bolts of how the basic strategy works. Is you're stretching with the lenders that will get you the property today. Yes, you might pay a little premium, but you get the capture of the growth. And then as soon as you improve your position that you can move back, well, then you can capture the savings in the interest rate by dropping your rate, by going to mainstreams. So, and also, it's like also like, especially when you're doing this young, you're probably on the lowest income you're going to be earning at that point. And you've got an upward trajectory. So you can sort of almost bank on it, that if you're hardworking and you're going to keep progressing, that, that's your exit strategy to get out of, out of those higher expensive lenders.
Can I chuck a bit of an interesting one for you both? And I know, Steve, you probably might not be able to, because you only bought the owner-occupier sort of down the track, probably. I mean, I think maybe you had one before. But how do you think about the owner-occupier in the Jarrod? Are you kind of like team rent vest and then...
That's actually a good point, actually. I forgot to mention that. I actually moved out of that property and I moved back in with my dad, and I was living rent-free. So that is obviously a big kicker in that I didn't have to pay rent. And now I had no non-deductible debt, which is probably a big... if we talk about mistakes down later, that's probably a big one that I think people do the owner occupied at the wrong time, and it really puts a noose on what you can do. So I am probably very much team rent vesting until such time that you can buy your forever house. And as long as you can do that forever house without stopping your investment portfolio.
Yeah. The thing, and I don't know if you see this as well, Steve, because I imagine a lot of people have good incomes, but the thing that I find is once you start paying rent of, assuming you haven't got an owner-occupied debt of like $1 million or something, but let's just say you've got an average kind of, I don't know, 800,000, and your mortgage repayments are probably $700-800 a week. If you then go and rent, and yes, it's not tax deductible, but if you're renting and paying $600-700 a week rent, you're actually, I found that you're not juicing that lemon that much. So you kind of, if you're going to go and rent vest, do you find you need to keep the rent relatively low, or try and move back in parents if you can? Sorry, Jarrod, that was you.
Sorry for me. I think there's elements to that. Yes, like if you're renting the same property as you're living in, as you have a loan on it, your mortgage repayments will be, it won't be a $200 a week difference. It's going to be $500, $600, $700, $800 a week. So you're probably almost paying double, in your repayments to have that property. But that's just your personal cash flow. The banks then add on another 3% to that number, and so that gap in number is massive. And then there's
Right.
Yeah, so it's really like I think that's the main thing that would probably stop the average person, because the average person probably will just buy their home, and then they go and look at the investing piece, and they've probably got to chew on that home for a little bit before they can pivot into the investment.
And they'll go and get themselves a $700,000 debt or something on that as well, which means that they're paying probably $1,000 a week on the mortgage as well.
Yeah.
Which,
And when they spoke to the mortgage broker at that time to buy that home, they said, "Give me the maximum I can buy," and that's so you're at your maximum, right? So unless you went and got a pay rise or something, nothing's changed. It's still your maximum. Obviously, there's other things we can do, and you might be able to finesse your way to slowly claw that back over time. But it is a big, heavy hit to your borrowing capacity when you've got that home.
I think that's the takeaway point. Is like you mentioned, it's like typically the mortgage payment is going to be twice of your rent, effectively, and that's where most people think. Even I think of it that way, but it's like it's twice plus an extra 3% interest
Plus
rate, for instance. So it's
ability.
not twice; it's going to be more like 2.5 times rent. So you could have got 2.5 properties to the one.
Yeah, and it's an after-tax calculation, whereas an investment property is a before-tax calculation.
Yeah.
So if you're on a higher bracket, you're getting more back from the taxman, so you get a bigger whack for your investment borrowing capacity than you do for your owner-occupied.
What are the solutions for people that are already in that situation, though? Is it, apart from if you can't move back in with parents, because the reality is, I don't know about you guys, but I probably couldn't live with. I hope they might watch, so I shouldn't say too much, but they would know this anyway. But for those who can't live back with their parents, they've got a couple of kids. Is it then figuring out a way to increase, sort of playing around the edges, like reducing debts or non-productive debt?
It is. You can still obviously get ahead. It's just about doing it, in a deliberate way, right? You just put extra payments on your home so that gets paid down quicker. It is, don't get the car loan to go on top of it. It's all the simple stuff you always hear about. It is obviously, if you're out of wall, the nuclear option, obviously, but most people won't take that. Is you go and you rent out your current place, or you sell your current place and you go and start again, if it's true. But by rights, you might be coming back to me when the wife's on 2 days a week, the kids are still at home, or that things will change over time. You might come back in 2 years later, the wife's back 4 days a week, kids are in school. Okay, income's gone up a lot, and then that might be your trigger point. And in that time, you've done all the good things in paying down your home, all that, so that when you come to that point in time, you might be doing a flurry of purchases like I did, because the trigger points have been hit.
So you've had. I was going to say, are there any benefits to owning a principal place of residence at all, besides the feel good?
Just the tax freeness when you sell it, but that's about all, right? And that's one of the big mistakes I see people get into, is it's not their forever home. So, like, the element of like, why are you holding it? You know what I mean? Like, that's the biggest trap, is people get into stepping stone upgrades. That's what will really hold you back. So if you can sort of zoom out and really think about that before you make those decisions, you might decide that property is a really good investment and you'll live in it, and so you do it that way. But very unlikely that's going to be the case where you want to live and where you invest.
I was going to say, I had that chat with my mate over Christmas. He's like, we're in Northern Beaches, and he's looking to buy a house in Cromer, which is like a couple suburbs in there from the beach. And it's like 2.2 million, but that's a cheap property there. Like, it sounds like a lot. And he went to like a few open homes. He's like, Steve, I don't even bloody like these houses. Like, I go into them and like, this is an old rundown red brick house. And I'm like, why are you buying? Like, cool. You already know, and this is what you said, Jarrod, it's not your forever home. Why we say, like, let's just knuckle down for 5-7 years and then buy your $3 million one in the same suburb and reap the benefits then.
Yeah. I think you've got a little bit more benefit the younger you can do it, because you can't know what you're doing in 10 years. I had no idea what I was doing in 10 years, sort of thing. I probably have more of an idea now that I've gone through it, but you shouldn't be making these 50-year decisions, when you don't actually know what you're going to do in that sense. So you're more just better off putting your best foot in front of the other and just getting your money working hard for you, in my opinion.
I'm happy to put my hand up and say that I don't have too much an idea. Like I think the older, I don't know about you, Steve, but we're roughly, I think you might be around the same age. The older I get, the less that I realize how little I figured out life. I know that sounds really interesting, but it's like you learn more stuff and you kind of come into more experiences, but you just think, crap, back when I was 20 or 25, I thought I knew everything. Now I'm just like, geez, I know not necessarily a lot. I know a lot about very little. I know a lot of kind of property related things, but I'm like, okay, there's just so many different things anyway. But guys, and Steve, you've done this controversial. I want to throw this to Jarrod because you're a little bit younger, so you probably got the property is not going to be as attractive in 5 to 10 years time to invest in. How do you feel, Steve? You're still standing behind that, and then we'll throw to Jarrod because I want to, and then we'll get more into the investing journey. How do you feel about that, Steve?
So what was the question again?
So you're saying that people aren't going to be able to build portfolios in 5 or 10 years. Like you've been on the record of saying that it's going to be harder. Like it's going to become like maybe 1 or 2 properties. Is that? Am I
They're
misquoting
not
you?
going to build properties in the same locations that we're currently doing it now. And that's completely fine as well. So like Jarrod knows this, like if you went 2 suburbs west of Blacktown from his first properties, it was farmland. So buying in those areas was not like a hot spot that buyers agents were buying or anything like that. It was literally farmland. So what's going to happen is going to be new small regional towns that only have like 15,000 people that will now have 50,000, be the size of like a Coffs Harbour, and it'll be all those up and coming areas. So I'm not saying it's not going to be impossible, but it's not going to look today. It's not going to be capital city driven and things like that. It's going to be very regional, selective kind of locations.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, so I can still have my double-digit portfolio, Steve.
Let me prove it this way. Like I got Jarrod, actually you're both brokers. Jarrod and Jen. I'm on 150 grand a year. I'm a principal at a high school. Can I buy 3 properties in Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, Perth, or Adelaide at the moment? Like,
Melbourne,
I got the capital. I've got parents gave me $1 million inheritance. I got the capital, got the deposit. Can I go buy 3 $1.4 million houses?
No.
So there we go. Point proven. We can't do investing the same way. There has to be different ways to do it.
Yeah, he trapped us, Jarrod. What do you think about? Like, what do you see because are you seeing? Because you're a little bit younger than Steve myself. Sorry to dox in your age, Steve, but that's okay. You tell us. Are you seeing amongst your cohort? Because you're about 7 or 8 years younger than me, roughly about that. Are you seeing the people at your vintage? Are they saying that property investing is? Oh, well, yeah, but it's like
those 90s babies.
Yeah, I know.
It's interesting. I think the elements of what people say is it's. I'm still seeing a lot of my friends still get into properties, right? It's not that it's impossible to get into properties. There's the 5% deposit scheme. You know, if you have a double income family and you do it before you have kids, like it's still very possible for people to get into properties even in Sydney, in my opinion. Hot take, but however, what you can, it's probably not the right way to go about. Like I'd be pushing my friends to go, well, you don't even like that 2-bedroom apartment in Burwood. Why are you going to live there? You're like, well, you're not going to want to live there in 15 years when the kids, are running around and stuff like that. So why are you buying that? Like, what's the point? Like, it's got, like there's no, So it's more about pushing the money to where it makes sense to, find those gentrifying towns. Like, I don't know too much, but like say at the time when I bought the Culture property, you probably, that's the Mount Druitt of, Brisbane or whatever. But it's doubled, sort of thing, or finding that next place that, and you see it even in Western Sydney, like growing up, it was a hard area, but now you go there, it's where all the immigrants are going, and they're actually gentrifying a lot the area, and it's changing and so that's why that market's gone up so much. And I think you just always need to be looking for that market.
Parramatta, you go there and it looks like a proper CBD now. I saw it was a Seek.com article, I can't remember, it was a year or 2 ago. And there was something like 50% of Sydney jobs were advertised in Western Sydney. Like 50%, because all the I think it was at NAB. NAB moved out to Parramatta or Sydney Lincoln Park or something. Like a lot of the banks moved out there as well.
Yeah, CBA moved to Redfern, but they moved a little bit. I think it's interesting because there was a town up just north of Adelaide. We're talking like an hour and a half. And I saw the price on it. I just thought 500,000. That's expensive for an hour outside of Adelaide. So I just thought, but to your guys' points, that will potentially where investing might go, because if Adelaide's $1 million to buy an average sort of run of the mill property there, maybe you have to then either work from home or commute in one or 2 days a week into the center of Adelaide, and you can buy that $600,000 an hour from a CBD. And yeah, maybe that's the way of the future kind of thing.
But
So
I'll give you the buyer's agent answer though. So the buyer's answer to that is what infrastructure is going in that hour away. It's the Parramatta of 30 years ago. Is there still good long-term, short-term? But if the infrastructure is already signed on the dotted line, that brings workers and that brings demand. All of a sudden there's more people and the rentals tighten, and that's where we get the growth. But that's probably the difference now. You talked about, like, my quote of I was saying it's going to be a different game. We've also got more information than we've ever had before, like ever. 30 years ago, we didn't even have mobile phones. Like now I can pull out my phone. I've got near maps where I can do satellite images of the house I'm looking at every year for the last 20 years. And I can see what developments are going up and when, and like this amount of information is just crazy now. So I think people are making smarter and smarter decisions. Like people 30 years ago weren't buying interstate and doing that. So we've got it easier, but also harder because now there's analysis paralysis.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, I've taken us on a bit of a journey. So, Jarrod, you bought the 3 properties, so 2 up in Brisbane or outskirts of Brisbane, 1 in Perth, mate. Bloody well done for Forestfield, mate. That was one of my favourite Perth suburbs that I was looking at. But what did you do then? Did you then sort of say, okay, take a break, and then or did you keep going?
So those were in sort of out to August of 2021. So I think in late 2021, I did the refinance, restructured, pull out the money, got another pre-approved. And actually, I bought another property. But this is probably actually one of the ones the most regretted property I bought. Because I kind of pushed the buyer's agent. I wanted diversification. I had one in every state, so I just said, okay, well, how about we go down in Victoria next? So I knew that. So we went and bought actually a property down in Geelong, and it's in 2022. So that's probably a bit of a
little bit early.
I think a little bit early. Like in hindsight, it was about 3 or 4 years early, probably. But also in hindsight, they didn't know what Dan Andrews was going to do, and the lockdowns and all that probably really took the wind out of that market, and put a real sour taste. So that was probably a little bit of a lemon property that I bought at the time. But I actually then followed through with another 2 properties. So I bought another 3 properties in 2022. So same strategy.
I was going to say, is the Geelong property okay now? Because I've bought some properties there.
Probably above water now. It's probably gone up.
They've gone gangbusters.
Yeah, it's probably up 10-15% from when I bought it.
Okay.
Which is it's interesting you say that's a lemon when you bought it 3 years ago. It's like, it didn't grow 70%.
A lemon in especially with the ones that I bought after it, you look back and you're like, oh, that was a bit of a. But I think it's still. If I was going back to buy it, I probably would buy it again today, sort of thing. But it probably wasn't the right property back then. It's probably
I think
here's a hotspot tip for you, Jeff. We bought in St Albans Park a year ago for $600K. This is Geelong. Got it valued last week. Get this, $740. 1 year later, done nothing. Ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, I'm seeing some really interesting stuff in regional Victoria. But it's it's interesting times out there, particularly down there. But
so done. I bought that one, and then the same strategy, but I bought with non-bank lenders. So I had a big cash out. So all the other properties had gone up quite a lot, and so it enabled me to pull a lot of equity quickly. So that was in the first year. It went back, revalued, pulled it out the deposits. And I actually did back then. I think Pepper was doing no LMI waivers up to 85.
Yeah, so 85. Yeah, now they're doing. Yeah, they're still doing that. 85.
Yeah. I went and bought another couple of properties, and I went into Rockhampton in 2023, and then into South Bunbury.
Bunbury. Wow. Okay. Yeah. You went back to WA. You're like a bit of WA. So wow. I'm just trying. I think that's 7 properties now, 7 or 8.
Yeah.
Roughly.
So that's about 7 properties. This is probably when Steve gets to shine a little bit after this one.
He's always shining. It's just he's got
Yeah.
a line on the background. It's like a halo. Like, look at Steve.
Yeah.
Wet stains.
Yeah, so we did that. I went really hard, and then it was on me to increase my income again and get to a better position to refinance it away from those higher rate lenders. So I think through to 2024, that was the goal of getting it refinanced. I think it took me a year, and I went really hard at my job, like just going like I need to get like big numbers and get myself up and running, because I think there was also the talks that like the rates were really, really low. So I'm like, I wanted to get out of, the non-bank lenders to get back to mainstreams and all that sort of stuff. So I think it took like a year from buying that property that I eventually refinanced again.
How did you feel? Did you, because this would have been probably around late 2022, maybe early 2023.
Yeah.
This is when the chatter was on about interest rates starting to increase. Were you starting to get a little nervous around this time, or did you have good cash flows?
Well, I had like half my portfolio of mainstreams and then half and just the purchases. So all the existing properties got put onto mainstream, and I locked them in.
Fix your rates.
So I felt a little bit comfortable, and I'm sitting there. Oh yeah, if it goes up 2%, 3%, I'll be fine. I think it went up 4% after that. Yeah, I think I did all my numbers. So so that gave me a little bit of confidence at that time to make those leaps.
Yep.
But in saying that, I had bought the properties in a very cash flow focused way, like duplexes. I actually started also building a granny flat in this time. So
up in Logan, was it? Or?
Yeah, on Logan. That's probably another one of my mistakes. I probably wouldn't have done that. I would have just put it into another deposit for another.
How much did the granny, was that 200K at the time, or what
yeah,
was the
it cost about 220K at the time, and it was when the building costs were going up, so there was lots of dramas with that. The builder wanting to up their costs, even though it's fixed price.
You're building a granny in Eagle Beach, Steve, or how do you think about
that? Well, that's funny enough. Exactly why I'm still holding on to the Eagle Beach property, because I've got the thing. If I spend a couple $100K, I can get. They're actually renting really well, about $550 per week for a good granny flat. I'm like, that's a commercial yield. So do I? Again, that's why I'm not so. But I want to get Jarrod's tip. So when's granny flats right for people? So when should you do them and when should you not do them?
It's hard to say. I think they're a circle back cherry on top. As in, don't like, because often the way that the financing and all that, you're going to be chipping in your own cash to do the deal. So if you want to do it quickly and execute it, you're putting in your own cash and you're tying up your capital. If you can do it in a way that you can, do it off of equity and it's not going to stop you buying the next one, then I might consider it. But also, it's just got to make sense in the numbers. There's no point in increasing your interest cost $400 a week to get $400 a week rent in my mind. Like, you haven't added any land value. You're just adding a depreciable asset that's going down in value. So why execute on that? You know what I mean? Like, so I think the cost reward has to be there too. Otherwise, just sit on it and then circle back to it, maybe as the cash flow play when you're wanting to actually create cash flow for retirement more so.
Why won't we either just buy commercial or ETFs and if we wanted cash flow?
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, there's probably better options to get cash flow than just building a granny flat, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So
I've always just told people, do the granny flat when you know you're not going to probably be buying other properties for a few years. It's like, your circumstances of, like, I'm moving overseas for 5 years, I'm getting married and doing this and blah, 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 blah. And where, like, you don't want the pain of the negative gearing from your other portfolio. So, cool, if I buy this will make me neutral. I can live my life and quit my job and blah. So mine's more of a circumstantial of, I know I'm not going to buy for 3 or 4 years. Cool. This will make my life a bit easier in the short term.
Yeah, it does take up a lot of time as well. Like, you get stuck sometimes.
Yeah, I kind of like that mindset, Steve, because otherwise, like, building that, you might, because if you go and use that 200K because you could go and buy another property with that 200K if you're borrowing it, provided you got serviceability, but you go and do that, and then let's just say 600K property is only running for 480, 500, you're pretty negatively geared, roughly. You're at costing you, whereas the granny flat's not costing you, so it's kind of soaking up the cash flow, eating up some time as well. So, well put.
But like Jarrod said, you're not making any more land components. So, like, theoretically, if you've got a commercial property, you could pay off that debt and just get rid of the higher interest rate, and you get your 6% return there.
Yeah.
There you go. When are you writing the ETFs made simple, Steve? No,
No, I'm not a share guy.
that could be fun though. Great. So, but you haven't even got into commercial yet. Jeez, we've got so much to cover. But we'll throw to our first. Sorry, go, mate. We'll throw to our first sponsor. Save that juice, and then I want to talk about unlimited borrowing capacity, but we'll talk about the commercial. Give Steve his opportunity because I'm sure he probably remembers them like yesterday. But we'll throw this first sponsor.
It's not your 10-minute level up one, is it?
No, not that one. We'll go this one, the more important one.
Oh, Jeff, I wish there was 3 investing books that covered everything property.
Oh, Joe, there is. Steve has 3 books now.
That I do, guys. I've got 3 books now. You probably don't even have to follow this group anymore. Just kidding. You want to keep seeing and hearing from me, of course, so stay involved. But in all seriousness, if you want to get the full picture of investing, residential, commercial, and development, these 3 books have you covered for the fundamentals. For OzProp members, here's the best part. I'm giving these books to you for free. Just cover the postage and I'll send them right to your door. Go to policeyproperty.com or click the link below and get your copies today. You can also get all my spreadsheets, checklists, and resources free on my website. Happy reading, gang.
Sorry, guys. I got a bit of somebody in the background as well, but you probably hear that. Everything's okay, but or maybe you can't hear it, so I've just called it so you listen to it. So that's I'm waiting for book number 4. I wonder what it's going to. Is it rooming houses, Steve? Or granny flats? Made
I'm
easy.
actually in talks with doing property strategies made simple, just going through 10 different strategies that you can use. And basically, I'm not going to make it about me. I'm actually just going to go and interview 10 buyers agents, being like, what is your guys' strategy? So get the rooming house, get the duplex guy, get the people who do the regional high cash flow, the people who do the granny flat, and just have all the strategies and basically have the same questions, same tables, same pros and cons list. And that way people can read through and go, cool, that's everything I need to know. I'm going to pick the one I like.
I want to read this book. That'd be good, I reckon. But speaking of that, let me know if you need proofreading for that. I'll give you let me know. But Jarrod, so your portfolio, so you bought these 8 properties and you sort of weighed up and you fixed in. So what was next? Did you just think, oh crap, okay, I'm done. I'm gonna go and sail off to the Bahamas or the Maldives, have my cocktails, and what did you do from there? Because we're at end of 2022.
I think the rates were starting to go up as I bought the last one. I think I was at 7 resis at that point. And the rates were starting to go up. So I basically chewed on that for a while, and then eventually got the refinance restructure, got a little bit of money out in that process, and I was sitting there, and I was basically sitting there and go, well, there's 2 paths. Basically, I was like, I would go and double down and do what I'd done in the past. So stretch out, go to a non-bank lender, buy another resi. And realistically, each property was going to be negative 20, 30K. So I could do that. But it was probably a pretty heavy cash flow burden to do that with the existing portfolio. And the portfolio was probably, probably like 50, 60 grand negative when it ran off. Even though it's duplexes, all that, because at the end of the day, I would leverage 105% for many purchases in a row. So even though some of the rents doubled in a 5-year period, but then the newer ones were quite negative.
Compare that to buying a principal place of residence for 1.5 mil. That's not that bad.
Yeah, and I think I was carrying about 3 million debt, and it was worth I'd leverage it up to 80%. So it was
How did you feel about that? Were you kind of, you're probably writing a few loans here and there, but maybe a few more than a few more. But how did you feel about that? $3 million in debt and 60K.
I've always just looked at it the cash flow, it's the cash flow that comes out of the pocket. And I was actually because my income varied so much, I was living off my base. I was just living off the base salary, which is big, lower than most people's salary. Sort of thing. And that was what I lived off to fund my portfolio. and my lifestyle. And basically anything I got above as a commission or a payment basically just went into the next deposit is sort of thing. So obviously I could have drawn on, those extra payments to help with my lifestyle because I was very frugal. Like I was paying my dad rent, just FYI. Say
FYI,
he didn't pay any rent, but it was a little bit cheaper than the going rate, but I was still paying rent and all that, and I'm single at that time, all that. So, but I was probably hyper aggressive or focused on, being frugal and all that sort of stuff. So
yeah. The thing I sort of take around, and we'll get to the commercial because I want to hear about that because I want to hear where was the light bulb moment. Was it listening to a Steve podcast? But the thing I take home from that is because people will be like, oh, okay, you're living at home, you're single. Like I've got 3 kids, I've got a wife, and only one of us is working. And I'll say I can't build the 8 property portfolio. That's okay. Just do what you can. Focus on your own situation because if that's 1 or 2 properties or 3, and that's over 10 years. That's likely better, not always, but likely better than doing nothing. So yes, Jarrod's done exceptionally well because he was able to he was in a stage of life, but don't compare his sort of life circumstance to your own.
And that's probably 8 years into the journey too.
So yeah, it's a good savings. You had to share.
So yes, you might, if the light bulb for you is today, well, just think where you could be in 10 years. You know what I mean? Like you still have that runway to do. Obviously, you've got more complications than I have through that time in that life and all that. But you also probably have a second person to help you and all that.
I want to point out this because this is what you're forgetting. Like you can't compare to Jarrod because Jarrod made a conscious decision to go work in an industry, and he said it. He said, "I knuckled down for a year and really made sure I got more commissions." And someone might say, "I'm a school teacher," or blah, I can't actually can do that. They're actually wrong. They can go do marking, they can go do tutoring. I bet you, Jarrod, you weren't doing 8-hour days. Like there would have been lots of 8 p.m.
COVID didn't have
8-hour days. What?
Yeah.
That's I do 8 hours for breakfast.
People want it and they don't see the outside. Like I know you would have been working 6 a.m. till 9 p.m. at night, some nights kind of thing. Like you can do it, but there's sacrifices if you're not in a very, very high paying job.
Yeah. And also that's probably something I'd say to clients is sometimes you see that client and they might be really cruisy in their job. Yeah. And they might be driving a truck, right? Well, why not go get your next level of the truck license and drive a bigger truck? There are things that, probably my most successful clients are tradies.
Yeah.
Sort of thing, like because they can turn up their income, they can do overtime, they do earn decent coin, and they've probably got a mind to property because they're seeing it every day, or so like it's also there is a large degree of what you put into it and you'll get back up.
And if you're not happy with what you earn, and like I'm not saying like some careers deserve to earn way more, like public system, teachers, nurses, like all that, they do deserve to each more, but we're just pushing it a little bit. Let's say instead of earning, I'm making it, I'm saying 110 grand a year, we push it and they earn 150, 160 or whatever they deserve.
That's not 1 or 2 properties.
Yeah, if they can just get 1 or 2 properties, but that's kind of it. But then at some point you have to make a life decision. Like my one was I was an engineer and I was looking at my boss being like, he's on 170 grand a year. I'm on 120 grand a year. That's my limit. Like, I don't want that. Like I was following all the young gurus with 20 plus portfolios and I was like, well, how do I get that? So I quit. And family and friends are like, you're an idiot. You spent 5 years studying. You've just got your career to a really stable level. Why are you quitting? And I was like, no, I want that thing over the hill.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah.
Sometimes you got to risk it to get the biscuit. That's a take.
And if it doesn't work out, go back to your other job. You haven't lost anything.
People laugh when I say you're often living that is not the worst case because job is there, but you can, that is the scenario that you can likely go back to. Probably don't swear at your boss and send them a rude email because they're probably not going to want to have you back. But so don't burn the bridges too much. But I'm sure you did that. Do it politely. Commercial, was that next, Jarrod? What? Yeah. How did you cotton upon commercial?
To be honest, I probably wouldn't have bought another resi. I'd come to the decision, but I think I'd seen Steve come across my desk for like mutual clients, or and I think some of the guys in the office might have been talking, and it was on my radar sort of thing as well. So I ran the numbers. Well, if I get like a 6% yield, I didn't have borrowing capacity to do a full doc loan either. Like basically, so but I had a big equity release that I'd spent that time earning that money. Moment in time, pulled out all my equity from what I bought. So basically, that was the trigger point to sort of go into the commercial route and just something a simple lease stock suitable property that would basically take care of itself was the goal. So people think that the rates are quite a lot higher in commercial. They're not really. They're probably very similar to an investment interest only loan.
Just a lower LVR, isn't it?
Yeah, but you need a bigger deposit to get into it usually. So so when you get the high net yield, it's very neutral to positive. It's just, depending on how much you borrow, that deposit is equity.
Yeah. But now that you've gone commercial or thought about it, you just gloss it. Like, I love how you just skate across that. Like, I just bought 6 properties in 18 months. Like, you just
wait till he gets to the commercial part, Jeff.
Oh, okay, geez, there's more, because I have watched your interview, but like I watched so much content. But tell me, would you ever want to go back to? I shouldn't be asking this, but I will. Would you ever go back to resi? Like, are you sold completely on commercial now? What's your view on that?
I would do it maybe as a speculation, as a luxury to my portfolio, but I wouldn't do it as a staple, I guess is the way I would do it. I would do it, the way I see it is, okay, now I've got an equity snowball. I've got that down, and now it's about building out the portfolio to have a cash flow that if I wanted to relinquish the debt, it would give me the cash. So I sort of look at it as like an EBITDA, like earnings before interest
and tax.
Yeah. And so I'm building up that number. And the way I'm doing that is by leveraging into commercial. So that's probably skipping a few properties, but that's sort of my mindset now is I'm building up the legacy cash flow piece to realize my wealth as a day-to-day luxury.
Was there a plan to this, or was it reactive of like, okay, I'm running a too negative a gear now, what can I do? Like, I need to do something out the box. Or was there a figure, like a passive income portfolio, or you just reactive? It's like, cool, got to the next one.
I was just always one step in the other. It was more reactive. It was just this pathway of resi, not an option. It probably would have been shares or commercial of my next just plowed in. I always had, being a broker, I'm always looking at it like, where shares let me down is that it's really hard to add it into a borrowing capacity account. Whereas if you add out of the property, you can add that into your servicing borrowing.
Okay. So quick question as someone who's not a shares guy. So how do you take into account shares into your borrowing capacity?
The generic way is you need to show everything. You need to show your tax returns.
Yep.
And so they look at historical value. There's a couple of lenders or strategies you might be able to do a demon rate on it if you get into private wealth banks. But realistically, it's not really going to help you, because usually when you need to present your tax returns, it's actually going to detract, because they're going to go, oh, you claimed this hot water system on your tax return. We're going to take that off.
Oh, yeah, you don't get the rental income,
So it's probably not worth it unless you've got a multi-million-dollar share portfolio and you don't have the same problems anyway. So it's kind of redundant. So that's why shares are so not useful if you're trying to build up your borrowing capacity as well.
Sometimes less is more in terms of not that you're ever looking to hide anything, but the amount of times you look at documentation and you're like, well, geez, this is opening up about 18 can of worms. I think the thing. So Robert Lang, and I love how balanced he is here. Sorry, I'll just read it out because it does this 10-second thing now. I caught the Brisbane wave since I purchased my owner occupier. In 2023, I drew out some equity and put in ETFs, which is accidental boon for me. I did ETFs because I was in two minds. Now, since PPOR has grown, I'm thinking whether to buy and hold or rental strategy, or should I go further on my ETFs? The great point of property is its value is from a larger value. So I think, Robert, that's a very involved question. Like, what are you hoping to achieve and why, Robert? Because
what can you do both? It might turn out that when you run your numbers, your property's probably gone up since 2023 when you pulled the equity. You might have more equity, and you don't need to go whole hog one way or the other. Is the way. It's finding out what your options are first, I reckon.
He's a politician, definitely a politician. But so was this free? I mean, I don't know if we're allowed to talk about how many properties you've got in commercial side, but is there free commercial, Steve?
Is there 3 commercials?
Yeah, like how did that? Or is there one you took the one lease stock and then since then?
So that was the first one, then actually I got to another point where I was like, okay, I've got my first property in Sydney, and I'm like, okay, I think it was like a 1.8% net yield on that property when you do the calculation. So I'd like doubled, but the rent had only gone up $100, and I was just sitting there like,
in 10 years.
Yeah, like I think it's going up now, but like that was the situation. Like the rents hadn't boomed. That was probably not the best buy, just me buying in my backyard in that sense. So I basically made the decision I would sell that and then clear a bit of debt and pull out a lot of cash. And at the time, I'm still capped out. I'm capped out from a borrowing capacity point. So, as a broker, there's little tricks you can do with security swaps. I security swap my loans off of that property so that when I sold the property, I got heaps of cash from that sale. And then I took that and then we went and bought the second commercial. So
do you want to explain for the people who don't understand what a security swap is, like what that actually is, so they understand, so they can actually work out, okay, with my portfolio, how do I attract it?
Yeah. So when you get your loan, it's going to be have a mortgage, right? So it's going to be secured to a property type. However, to get a new loan, you need to apply and present all your situations. So they need to look at your pay slips, they need to look at everything, and they do a full doc, is the terminology, where they review everything to determine that you can pay for that loan. However, if you already have that loan, it's already been established that you could afford that loan, and so but it's tied to a property. So when you sold that property, if you do nothing, that loan is going to get paid out in the sale process. However, if you've got another property elsewhere that's at the required loan to value ratio and has equity in it that you could move that loan to that property, you can, without applying for a new loan, just port your loan to that other property. And so when you sell that property, it might be unencumbered, or you might not have an equity to move the full loan. Were you
still paying principal and interest against that?
At that time, I'd gotten onto interest only. Everything was on interest only. So I ported the loan across, sold the property, got a chunk of cash, and I still had the loan. So you sit it in the offset while you're not using it, and then send Steve out to go buy the next commercial property. And so that's how I got the second one, and that was just another lease stock.
So you still lease.
I think I just want to touch on the point for the security swap. This is the difference between a good broker and a bad broker, and why you need to talk strategy about what you're doing to get the next one. Because if you don't, then you can shoot yourself in the foot. And basically, we sell a property, but you don't actually get any gain from it.
You get cash,
like
but you don't get the same amount of asset value.
So
that's what I did there.
So that was commercial number 2. I'm got to be careful, I might lose count. So then I think at that time, I've been sitting on my super for a long time. I'd always been contributing additional, like basically since I was got out of high school. I don't know why. I just always had the math always made sense. Like, you get a tax deduction, put money in super.
Jeremy's not your accountant, is he, Jarrod? Because he's always every time I see him, he's like, Jeff, super. I'm like, okay.
No. So I've been doing that in the background. I've always had a mindset of forced scarcity. If I don't have the money, I can't spend it. So I've always been putting it into property, putting it into shares. So that's what I did. And I think at that time, I think that's right. I went into the SMSF next. So I went and took that. I don't think residential is the best in my mind. I've seen it work where you buy residential in super funds, but it's a bit of a weird mismatch where you're forced to contribute into your super if you do it in that way because it's so negative cash flow. I didn't want that. I've always been the mindset I want my portfolio to largely take care of itself. So again, no brainer, commercial property. I think I had a little bit of too much spice in the second property, so I just wanted vanilla as warehouse. So that we got a warehouse in the super for that one.
There you go.
Yeah.
Is there more though? Is that
Yeah.
Yeah, there's still more.
There's more.
I want to touch on. Hopefully, I'm not speaking out of tune, Jarrod. I don't want to upset you, but like a lot of these commercials so far are sub $1 million purchases, and the reason I bring that up is because so many like educators and other buyers agents say you can't get commercial under $1 million, but you can. Like Jarrod mentioned, I don't want to sugarcoat it. Like one of the deals is a bit more spicy because it was a higher risk one because of chasing yield. But that's part of the game as well. But you can still buy good quality properties under $1 million.
Yeah. Because I think the first one was, when was that? 2024 or 2023? I think the first one was in the commercial, and then I think it was 2024 for the second one, and then I think it wasn't until 2025 that I got into the super fund. So that again, it was down to like I needed to build up my financials. So there's waiting periods in this where I had to build up the money to do it. But I think at that point, I also was able to refinance, and my borrowing capacity had freed up again in 2025 to go back and revisit all my residentials that I'd done nothing with. I think by the time it'd been like 2 or 3 years since I'd last pulled equity out of it.
There you go. Jeez, I think So is there only one more? Is there more than one?
So then I had
we're still going, Jeff. We're still going.
We bought a warehouse in Perth on a lease stock at the time before I did the refinance again. So that was the third commercial for about 600K. Yep. And then I did the refinance, and then I bought a
I think Brisbane next, I think.
Brisbane 1.1.
Yep.
A little cheeky one I did. I'm not sure if I told Steve yet. I bought an owner-occupied late last year.
Wow.
And now Steve should be chasing me up another one this year.
But we also got we got the dual Brisbane ones as well for number 5 and number 6. Now we're on number 7.
Yeah. Yep.
Jeez, I didn't realize that you had this many.
Yeah. No, it's been a busy.
I've converted someone. I've converted another person.
Yeah. So and then that's pretty much where I'm at today. I was sort of navigating. So we settled like the double warehouse in Brisbane in November last year. I bought a property. So I probably broke my rules a little bit in that sense, but I think I've gotten to the point where now it's more about living life, because the portfolio is what it is. Like if I wanted to, I could sell everything off and be fine. Yeah.
Mate, you're only early 30s, man. You have lived. I think we might have to have a beer or two. You have to get if that's your persuasion.
It's one of those portfolios, Jeff, where if like just this sort of the commercial, because I know the numbers of the commercial. If the rents double in 10 years, and I'll be okay to say this, like Jarrod is in a very, very, very good position. Like he's going to be fine. Can I ask a question? Would you go back to residential, and why?
Didn't I already ask that though? He said if
you're talking about like the speculative ones, but I'm talking about like because something might bring him back into it for like he wants to grow the portfolio and he wants the lending. Interest rates drop, the commercials grow, and he's actually got a bigger borrowing capacity for residential.
Yeah, I think eventually, like, because so probably like a little back. So all my resis are in my personal name. No trust games played, all in my personal name. Yeah. Trusts all in entities. I mean, all the commercials are in entities. Mm-hmm. So that's a little bit. So now I can do infinite borrowing capacity. Legitimate.
Let's talk about that. We're at an hour.
We got to throw the second sponsor and a couple of questions.
Don't worry about the second sponsor.
No. Well, I got to go get my cup of tea, so we'll come back on that one. Stay tuned. This is an amazing ad. Please stay tuned.
Yeah, stay tuned. We're going to talk.
Everywhere you look, someone else is making money in property except for you. Your mate, he just bought a house. It's already gone up $100,000. There's some bloke on Facebook. He's bragging about pulling in a 7% rental yield. Meanwhile, you're stuck scrolling real estate and domain, confused as hell and having no idea about where to start. Or maybe you're that mate that's got $100,000 in equity. You have a few properties under your belt, but you feel stuck. You're unsure about how to scale without over-leveraging and not knowing what the next right move is. So why does it feel like everyone else has some kind of secret that you're missing out on? It's because they do. There's a reason some people keep stacking properties while others sit on the sidelines stacking excuses. There's a reason why some investors buy under market value while others pay too much. There's a reason why investors know the hot spots before there's any heat. And there's a reason that some people build $150,000 in passive income while others just spend years thinking about it. And it comes down to knowledge. And that's exactly why Jeff Miles and I, Joe Tucker, created the Level Up Property course to hand you the exact step-by-step process that we've used to buy over $100 million worth of property in today's market. We've built Australia's largest property investment community with over 80,000 members, and we help everyday investors secure hundreds of thousands of dollars in equity, all without wasting years of their life trying to figure it out the hard way. Making an uneducated decision on the biggest purchase in your life is just gambling with your future.
Stop it. Get some help.
And this isn't just another how to buy property course. Let's be clear though, this course isn't free. And neither should it be. This is our life's work. We've spent over 100 hours each on this course alone. Oh, babe. Okay, video number 3. Number 4 with million does... Done. We've got decades of experience, millions of dollars in deals distilled into a repeatable process that you can take away for yourself. If you're looking for free advice, there's plenty of noise out there. You can go and find that if you'd like. But if you want real, actionable, step-by-step guided process that works in today's market, then this investment is going to change everything for you. By the time that you finish this course, you will have full confidence. You'll have every tool that you need to build an amazing portfolio if you act on it, right? Which is why we have mentoring built in. So we kick you up the butt to make sure that you're kicking your goals. So the real question is, how much longer are you going to watch everyone else making money in property before you jump in and start playing the property game properly? Because the sooner you start, the sooner you start winning.
And we are back. So yeah, that just it's taken me a little bit by surprise. Everybody's woken up in the comments. It's people are like, we should have led with that.
When they heard the word commercial, Jeff, and 7 commercial properties.
I think it was more about unlimited borrowing capacity.
No, it's all about commercial, Jeff.
No. So Jarrod, are we done with the you're
the portfolio up to scratch? Yeah, now it's just
because I remember at the pre-chat we were like, so what's next? And it's like, I haven't really thought about that yet, but we can have a bit of a strategy session here, but maybe not a live strategy session.
Can I ask a question that's completely off topic?
Yes,
Jarrod, your partner's obviously Filipino, married in Philippines. Any consideration about moving over there for an extended period?
Ooh.
There's an idea, but I think it comes with a pretty big tax bill if I'm over here too long. I guess I'm just taking the approach of living spending time over here. Remote work is a possibility in this day and age. So I can get the perks of Australia and the Philippines by just being flexible with how I live my life, sort of thing.
Yeah. Because how much cheaper is it are we talking like half the cost, a third of the cost?
Probably, yeah. Like if you do it, probably less than half of the cost. Yeah. It depends how you want to live, where you want to live. Like if you want to live in, BGC and live the high life, you might be, it'd still be cheaper, but you're going to spend a lot of money.
Property in the Philippines, is it a no or a go?
I don't know. I'm just going to keep to my what I know sort of thing. Yeah, I think there's a lot of a foreigner can't own. So, but my wife could, so she could. But there's a lot of it's a little bit shady. There's not the same governance that we have for luxury in Australia. You cannot getting loans from the little bits working with say our offshore staff and stuff. It's not. It's nothing like what we have in Australia. We're kind of a little bit blessed in that sense of what we can do.
Yeah, unlimited borrowing capacity. I tease a little bit, and you've got a spicy take on that serviceability isn't the issue.
I think I just have the old school take is the right circumstances, it makes sense to use a trust. However, I think there was a little bit of zealousness in how people would use it in recent history. because these rules have always been around. It's not like they discovered something new. It's just there's two parts to it. Is like getting the finance. Like, can you get finance? Yes. Or like that. That's like just rules, like black and white. If you have this situation, you can use this policy. The part that I think people overlook a lot is the strategy piece of it and how you actually execute on doing it. Because the infinite borrowing capacity is reliant on infinite equity, and stacking multiple loans and multiple properties in multiple trusts with previously one lender, now then multiple lenders, but now that's getting tighter and tighter, and it's getting harder to do. Can you still do the strategies? Yes, it's still there, and probably will never go anywhere. But is it also helping you get to where you want to be? Like, is that actually getting you an extra property that you wouldn't have got? That's the part. Like, I question that you would actually get an extra property a lot of the time because you executed on the strategy. There are genuine times where that would be the case, I reckon. But another thing I'll add in there, and then I'll let you guys go, is I also think it was a time and place of the markets that were active at the time, which brings in the land tax components and what that brings into a trust and how expensive that can be in the wrong states.
New South Wales, for example, no threshold. I mean, Victoria.
If everyone was, you can't buy this, you wouldn't want to buy this property portfolio in New South Wales. And even Victoria is quite expensive. And so whereas, but WA, very easy going. Queensland, pretty easy going. So but Queensland and WAs have been the markets for the last few years. So it's really tied in with this strategy. But if those markets turn and you're going into other markets, it kind of also throws out that strategy.
Can we strip that back a little bit, because we went quite technical there, and I'm going to try to dumb it down a little bit for the everyday kind of watch up. So firstly, we're talking about infinite borrowing capacity of, i.e. buying in trusts, correct? And then basically having the trust as a profit-making vehicle entity, so it's not looked at by the lender. And then theoretically, like you said, the infinite equity is that property's grown, and you can get that equity, and that property doesn't turn negative, it stays positive, and you buy another one and so on. But you're kind of saying when you pull out that infinite equity, it's turning that negative anyway, so you're probably not going to get the next property. That's going to be the bottleneck. Unless you have incredible rental growth.
Yes, or you're buying commercial.
It's where the deposit is coming from, I suppose, Steve. Because if it's coming from equity, then like you're just increasing how much debt you have, and then it's like, well, when is it going to fall over?
I know, because we were going very technical with land tax and strategies and things like that, and I wanted to make sure that's the premise that everyone, that's the premise of what we're talking about, and then we can help mitigate that with the cash flow from the tax point of view.
There you go. So I wanted to what was I going to say? There was because how do you then sort of, I suppose, think about, we've got a couple of questions that come up, but how do you think about people I suppose doing that sort of, actually that's what I was going to ask, buffers. You were saying, and maybe it's a little bit more now, maybe it's a little bit less for commercial. How much do you feel comfortable with to have as a cash buffer? Are you six-figure cash buffer plus? Like, what are you comfortable with for your own?
I'm probably one of the more aggressive ones in that sense. Okay. Like, it's sort of enough that, you've got a few months repayments and stuff. Like, I think it depends on your portfolio of, I've always ran the portfolio as a try and keep it as self-sufficient as possible, so I don't need to tip in the money. So therefore, you don't need a bigger buffer, sort of thing. But if you've got if you're earlier in the piece, but in the saying that, it also depends what you're doing for work. Like if you've got a government job, and there's no way that they're going to fire you, or if they are going to fire you, you're going to get a nice, golden handshake.
Hopefully.
Do you need 2-3 years of buffer? Like, what are you holding onto that money to do? But me personally, I'm probably a little bit more aggressive in that. So it's sub 6 figures.
I also tell clients it depends on what your portfolio looks like as well, because it's not just the individual types of properties change that, but more importantly, a loan to value ratio. Like, even if you're leveraged up to the eyeballs, as I'll say, like to 80% with your portfolio, and you're like, oh, I don't have any buffer, if the market's not going to drop on 20% on every single one of your properties, you can actually sell one and get 20% very quickly as a fire sale. So you've got options there. Whereas if you got number one property and it's a very highly leveraged single property for 1.5 mil, you don't have that luxury. So you either got to sell the property or come up with the money elsewhere. So what your portfolio looks like, what your cash flow looks like, what you do for work, it all comes into it. But good question, Jeff. I get asked that all the time, and it's just like, it depends.
Yeah.
Nice. Before we throw to questions, are there? I know we're just coming up on the hour and a half mark, and I want to respect you. You're a man who's just gone through your second marriage ceremony yesterday, so maybe spend a little bit of time. But any questions you want to ask Steve before we get to the audience? Like I'll probably ask another 80. But
No, because it'll be about quite commercial. I was going to be like asking the difference between lending, but we've done that before. But I can see there's some good questions. Like Rebecca's got a good one about hacks and things like that. So I think let's get into those.
I would say strategies, Rebecca. I don't. The word hack makes it sound like it, but no. Sorry to be picky, but a hack is, I don't know. I get a little concerned about hacking.
No, I think that, like, I think you're putting a negative connotation on it, but like something like a security swap, that's a hack. You're playing. No, it's not. You're playing with the system from the original rules that you've signed up for to get what you want.
Yeah. It's an interpretation.
Yeah, there's always lots of little things, like, like if you're on a commission, talk to your broker as soon as you know you got a commission before it's even paid, because just like anything income related, there's different ways to look at things.
Talk to your broker before the commission.
So if you're going to get a commission, because you might have a window of time that you can use your commission payment to get a good annualization of it. Or if you wait another quarter, you might have got a worse quarter and now it doesn't look as nice. It's about coming to the broker at the, but you won't know this. That's why you need the broker to tell you this. But, that's where, you want to present to the bank as best as you can. So there's things that you can do in setting that up. Like, this is something I thought off the top of my head. If Jeff, you might have one.
One I discovered the other day, casual school teachers before school holidays, because particularly the summer holidays, because they're not getting paid for 6 weeks then. So your year to date. So that's one that I found. It's going to annualize it better.
I've got a good one. So like I've obviously got like a large team with like some people on high salaries, low salaries in commission, things like that. If you're someone who's potentially on a commission role, are you better taking a high salary and low commission, or a low salary and high commission? And normally the advantage of obviously having low salary, high commission is you earn more if you do really, really well, but you earn less if you don't do well. But the high salary one, I imagine, might open some more doors. But maybe tell me if I'm wrong. Like the high commission, obviously they might take it over 2 years tax return, so it's amortized.
If you need to do it tomorrow, you would want the high salary. If you are okay with taking the time to build up your position, sort of like being self-employed, you want to get your numbers as big as possible. At the end of the day, the ratio is based on how much on the cold hard numbers. So the bigger that number can be, you might need to pick a particular lender that will look at it at the best time frame that you need. But the bigger the number will be on the other end. Basically.
Nice one. Okay. Good question though, Steve. It's easy. You're coming out. It's like you prepared all this stuff. See, here's some I prepared earlier. Can I ask? It says net cash flow. So it's not. I suppose net can be negative as well, can't it? Net negative. Can I ask a cheeky question? What was the overall net cash flow from the residential back before you bought, before you bought into commercial? Do you remember that number? Was it?
I think it was about 50 or 60K.
Okay.
Negative. That was before tax. So you might have got 20K back.
Probably like.
Did you have this similar situation to me where you're like, how good is this? I've got a neutrally positively geared portfolio, and then interest rates just kept creeping up, and you're like, damn, there goes that goes out of retirement.
But before the rate rise, I was like positive 20 grand or something. Yeah. And I'm sitting there going, oh, if it goes up 3%, I'm sweet. And then it went up 4%. I was sweating a little bit in the sense of probably motivated me a little bit more to keep working hard.
The thing I'm taking away from this is that sort of sense of thinking about the things you're going to sacrifice, like that grit and determination, like, and even that sort of putting yourself into, like, obviously if you've got a young family, maybe be a little bit cautious on this, but if you're comfortable and you can do it, like push yourself as much as you can, like don't break yourself, obviously, but I'm like, that's going to then potentially lead to a better outcome down the track. Maybe, obviously it's not sustainable. I imagine you pull back a little bit, have you, Jarrod, or are you still going?
Yeah, I think the me today wouldn't do what the me did 10 years ago, just from life. And I always found it funny, like people would always come to me just as you discover that they had kids, the next time they come, when their kids are on the horizon, obviously things change and what prioritize in what order. So I'm seeing that, like, as I get older, that there is obviously more to life. But I think while life is simple and you can sleep on the couch, live with, guys and split the rooms up and pay a really low rent, it's like, it's money for jam if you can put your money to work at that time.
What was I doing with my time before kids? That's what I ask myself these days.
Yeah.
I wasted better on this one. I think this is an interesting one. How much super does someone need to make it worthwhile to invest in commercial? What do you think about that, Steve?
So my answer is normally around 250, but I'm going to throw it to Jarrod and say, with that 250, what can I leverage and what LVRs and what interest rates do I get? And again, I know the answer, but I'm doing this for the audience.
But the funny thing is you can probably actually leverage the SMSF commercial higher as a percentage than you can actually do a full doc often with most lenders.
80% normally SMSF, can't
so
you?
you can usually get up to 80%, so 20% deposit plus your costs.
Yeah.
So the caveat is obviously you need to be having the contribution to go in to support that loan. But yeah, like if you've got that and the only question is about the money you need, it's probably around that 250 that you're going to get $1 million asset. Which is actually, like, I've bought pretty much all my properties under that $1 million mark of commercial. So it's a very realistic number.
How about
Well,
and the rate will probably be 7.
Interest rates are much higher as well, and that's
the rates are about,
a couple of lenders are doing it as well.
Yeah, about 7.5.
Yeah, with commercial. Yeah.
Yep.
There you go. I want to know this one because this is Tim he's watched the whole session, but it took Jarrod 8 years before he not figured it out, but he thought about it. So is there, like, knowing what would you have done in that 8 years that you did differently? Would you have changed jobs quicker, or what would you have done?
Good question. Yeah. What would you have changed?
I would have. I think I would have focused on my career earlier, like as a like an 18-year-old. It's a bit hard to know because I didn't know what I wanted to do. But if you could have, like, you'd probably almost be better off if you don't want to go become a bricklayer, and do that for 2 years and earn big money. You know what I mean? And just earn the money and get your money into the market. And then you might figure out, I hate bricklaying. At least you got a property under your belt because you've been earning good money or something. Like, I would probably actually, like, for a young person, focus on getting that career and trying to condense that timeline that you can get into a property more than anything is what will move. Because going into uni, you get out at 22, 23, you probably haven't been able to save up a deposit.
You still have no idea what's going on.
You still don't know what you don't want to do because you haven't been in the workforce, So I think that's the thing that would accelerate it. But obviously, you might not want to do that, I guess. But
it's kind of like that sliding doors moment. I think you'd think similar as well, Steve, because if you'd figured it out earlier, then you would have just done it. Because how do you figure it out without actually going through the time? And how do you think about that, Steve? Is there a way to figure it out earlier in your career, or not really?
This is why I bloody love Ozprop Investors, because back when I started, you didn't get to talk to someone like Jarrod, who's got bloody 7, 8 commercial properties and like build a resi portfolio. It just didn't exist. It was only just the big Chris Grays and blah, 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 and then like a few of those kind of early buyers agents. So you just didn't know. But like you said, it's always sliding doors. I actually think if engineering paid 250 grand, I don't think I'd be as successful as I am now. So, and that's because I probably would have got to a point, bought a PPOR earlier and been like, yeah, I've got a good life. But I was just like, I knew I wanted that next level to what I was earning. So it forced me to throwing my toys out of the pram, jump into a buyer's agency role, start from scratch and build it. Similar to Jarrod with the mortgage brokering. While I remember it though, can we talk about childcare?
Okay. Yeah.
Oh yes. Okay. Yeah, that was
It's
actually
expensive sometimes.
Yeah. So those who are tuning in now, Jarrod worked as a bookkeeper for a childcare center, and they grew to like 6 different childcares.
Yeah.
And I asked the question: you've got expertise in getting mortgages. You've got expertise on how to run a childcare. You're an expert in commercial property now. Is there a way to integrate all 3 of these?
Yeah. So childcare, from a commercial context, is what we would call specialized. So it's a niche asset. There's only one type of tenant going into a childcare center. That brings caveats that the lenders will look at it. You need bigger deposits, basically, is the short of it. And that brings risk to it.
Are we talking, 60% LVRs?
Yeah, I think you can get up to 60, 65 with the right lender, but you might be compromising or limited to one lender. There's so usually like 50 to 60 or something you might be looking at. So obviously you already need to have already made it essentially to get into the asset in a way. Yep. But also, like, I guess the reason why the lenders look at it like that is that if you lose a tenant, there's probably something wrong with having a childcare center in that place. So you basically need to demolish it, or like there's not much you can do with the asset. It's a stranded asset, so they want to protect themselves. So it's a bit of a weird one. I don't know what I haven't seen. I know Steve probably doesn't do too much of it, so hence I don't see as much of it. But you also get a lower yield in that usually. For that risk.
That's pretty much my thing. Is like, you get in a low yield, they're not cheap as well. You can't go buy a sub $1 million childcare center. So you start spending typically 3 million, normally 5 to 10 million as well. And they sold it on the premise of like, oh, you got a 10-year lease out of it. But like you mentioned, if it does go bust, unlikely, but they happen. Like the ABC centers shut down in certain locations, it just doesn't work because of competition. Got a purpose-built building that you can't do anything with. So it's demolish, start again. So the risk and reward isn't really there. I would say the only time you do it is when you know the area inside and out. And you also have an understanding of development in terms of town planning as well, where you can research applications and then basically have an exit strategy of like, cool, at 10 years time, I want this paid off and I want my return at that point in time. But it's no different to buying like a petrol station or a very specialized asset. Not against it. I know some successful investors. One of our clients actually does the running of them. So they build them, they run them, they get them up to it, and then sell them at a premium on a 10-year lease once they've got it up and running, and they're making lots of money. But again, very specialized, very high risk. They know what they're doing. Yeah, they've got a lot of money.
And that's from my work experience. Like, so they were essentially developing property. So obviously they go, oh, there's a house here or whatever it is worth $1 million. They were going in as the operator and going, well, obviously we're going to lease it. We know it's going to create a massive amount of value. So that they would partner with landlords and go, you put in $1 million, we'll put in $1 million, we'll give you a 30-year lease. And then they get instant equity out of the deal, basically, because they get those low cap rates and those values. So if you could do something like that, it might actually be really, really good in that sense. But just coming in as buying it off the shelf might be.
It wasn't as juicy as what I thought, Steve. I thought there may have been some really sort of, but I mean, there is some potential there, but it's just, you've got to really know exactly what you're doing. Otherwise you get yourself burnt.
It's either an established area and you're paying a premium for that because it's well encapsulated, or it's one of those new estates and it's going out there and there's going to be teething issues for the first 5 years and it might not success. So like it's that balance of risk reward. You can get around a 6.5% if you're buying in like a new established area, but there's a risk there. If you're buying in a good kind of established area, it's closer to 5. And then for what you can get, you can go buy for $5 million. You can go buy some really cool assets.
Like like Logan. You buy a bloody Baroni Heritage Park, or is it you
buy multi-tenancy and industrial. You can even start buying blue chip. We were like had an offer on a Red Rooster with a 15-year lease in Bendigo for $5 million, and that was a 5% return, and with guaranteed by the franchise. Like there's some cool stuff you can start looking at in that price point.
Yeah. Nice one. We need to do a commercial maybe at some stage once you're ready, Steve, when you're ready to present more. But what I want to say, we'll get to, for those who've gotten value, we've heard a guy has built a this is like a like a double-digit property portfolio, and I didn't even realize this. I didn't ask him. I didn't ask it. So I found this out on the session.
I think it's worth more than $10, Jeff.
Drop us a 5-star on Spotify, please. Worth more than $10. But this has been a great session. There is one more question from Jude that I love, but get us, because this is how people like Jarrod will start listening to our podcast and be like, I want to get on I want to get Jeff and Joe's show, but and Steve as a co-host. But what were your, if any, strategy pivots during your residential and commercial property purchase and ownership? Change of use, value add, sublets, sell underperforming. So that was the one in. Jude may not have watched the whole session, or Viv didn't watch the whole session maybe. But you sold that one in Blacktown. Would you say that's underperforming because of the net yield, or was that the issue?
Yeah, or I guess I looked at it of what it might do in the future, and I guess I was a little bit skeptical from that point of view. So I guess it done pretty well in the time I had.
Was that Jarrod affordability? You were just looking at rents?
Yeah, it was more about shifting the deck chairs to make it, like take to the next level more than anything. If when I talk to clients, I try to avoid selling unless you really have to. But if it lets you get to the next level, then like that's probably the way I look at it.
I think when people are earning a same income their whole life, i.e. like a government job or whatever it is, selling is a much bigger thing because it's like I'm losing quite a lot of money. But when you're in a career where the income's increasing as well, you can kind of cop that loss knowing that the projection's going up and you're going on to bigger and better things as well. But I used to think I'll never sell a property. And then I realized having a negative negative cash flow position wasn't really funding my lifestyle. So you make a shift anyway.
Yeah. And the way I kind of think, and you probably think similar, is oftentimes selling may not necessarily help the serviceability, because oftentimes if you've held that property for, like if you bought a new property and 600K debt on the investment, then that's probably potentially going to help you. But if you've got 300K and it's bringing in $600 a week, I'm like, getting rid of that's probably actually hurting you a little bit, or not helping you as much as you may think. So really get the person to map it out before you start selling stuff. Like, yes, it may free up some capital. So really get clear on why you're selling that asset, as Steve has said.
But this, again, coming back to you guys being brokers, that's what makes you guys good brokers versus bad brokers, because it's not just, you should never just go to a broker and say, what's my borrowing capacity? Like, that doesn't tell, well, it does if it's property number one, but like if you got 5 properties, there are way more moving parts to it than that. Like, what are you trying to achieve? Like, what time frame? What's, like you mentioned, the hack? Like, what are the guarantees to the properties and things like that? And then, like, what's the plan? Are we going to buy commercial? Like, what are we shifting the money for? What are we going for? Like, and some of the brokers hate me. Like, I literally, when I do an introduction from a client, it's literally, can you please tell me the borrowing capacity for residential, for commercial, if I sold the Blacktown property, if I buy and sell, and there's like 5 things, and the broker's like, hell, I've got to do a lot of work here, but you have to, and that's it. And then they benefit in the long run because they get the loans.
Yeah. There'd be more, like you start to build up your skill set as well, as you've absolutely done, Jarrod. Any last question we need to ask Jarrod before we let him sort of tell how people can get more Jarrod in their lives? Any last questions?
Do you think being a broker has changed the size of your portfolio? Not from the income point of view, so from understanding point of view.
Oh, definitely. Yes. Yeah. Like having an understanding of what I can do and when I can do it and all that has definitely let me execute when otherwise I might not have known that I could execute, I guess.
I think you've got your brokering firm, like, are guns, like they're proper all high level investors. Like, your power of proximity and leveraging their knowledge is just huge as well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like, I feel sorry for the brokers where they're by themselves in that sense, because there's so much, like, seeing so many different deals, you learn weird and wonderful things from other guys in the office and stuff.
You mentioned you got exposed to commercial because you saw, like, some of my properties going across your desk, Z's desk, and other people's desk in the office, and you're like, what is this thing?
Yeah, correct. And that's sort of like it opens your mind up to things that you didn't know were possible. And even it's just like clients come in and they didn't a development, and you're like, oh wow, that's pretty cool. Like, and that's probably where I would break my rules and go, or not break my rules, but that's where I would consider a resi or something like that. Is, you know, you might go and now do that speculation of, hey, go do a value add play to make the equity release or sell down, rebuy, you know. And then, but I don't think you need to be doing those things. It's more of an acceleration tactic.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, Jarrod, man, this has been a great session. Like, I've really enjoyed like actually learning about your journey and about, I suppose I didn't realize that it took you 6 years and that sort of career shift to go and build it. I thought you just steadily built it up. So good on you for, I suppose that's what I would encourage anybody out there in our group and listening to this. If you feel stuck and stagnant, like what about it in your investing that is, if you're stuck and stagnant in your life, that's a different conversation. But what is it about that you need to change it up? Is it a new person in your team? Is it a new career? Like, what is it? Because I think that will hopefully lead a fresh lease of life in your investing journey. Jarrod, how do people like get more of Jarrod Mackenzie in their lives?
Yep. Probably I'm on leave for the next week, so don't chase me too hard while I'm enjoying. But probably
he's got his third wedding tomorrow.
Yeah. Basically, like I think I'm on LinkedIn. You might be able to message me there, but probably the best one is if you want to just talk is admin at Investify, which is on the video.com.au, and just say, hey, I saw the video, you know, and then even if I don't get to you, like all the other guys in the office, they live and breathe it just like us. So we're all investors ourselves.
Yeah, it's great. It's good to see. Good to get somebody on who knows how to, I suppose, talk about and is an investor themselves, because it's not everybody is, and you don't have to be investor, but it helps out. So, Steve, thank you very much for co-hosting as well. What words of wisdom are we leaving for Steve before we finish up?
From Steve, I want to probably reiterate the lifeline about like just have a crack. Like Jarrod made a good point of like, you can always save costs if things go bad. Like if you're young, you can go get a share house, you can go live with parents, you can. Jeff Miles, he's got a spare room, everyone, if you want to go crash there. Like you've always got something. Like nothing goes wrong. So your worst case scenario is you're going to go tail between the legs, live with a friend and eat their food for a month or two until you get yourself on the feet. Like that's it. So have a crack. If you're not happy with your life, have a crack at something else. You got literally nothing to lose.
Yeah, great. Well said, Steve. In the words of Joe, let's go and buy a property, everybody. See you next week.
There you go.
Thanks.